After Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to a place where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered.
A garden, Jesus of Nazareth. You think a garden will save you? That's the best you can do? Oh, this all began in a garden. Do you remember? It was eons ago. But I was there. Oh, yes. I was there when you lost. I was there when they took the fruit and they ate. Who do you think was whispering in their ear? You think these people listened to you? They listened to me first. Oh, yes. What power? What power do you think that you have compared to the power that broke the world? You think that you're safe in a garden. Well, I own the garden. There's nowhere that you can go where I am not. There is nothing you can build that I cannot destroy. There is nowhere you will be where I am not right next to you.
Now Judas, who betrayed Jesus, also knew the place because Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas brought a detachment of soldiers together with police from the chief priests and the Pharisees, and they came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that was to happen to him, came forward and asked them, "Whom are you looking for?" They answered, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus replied, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. When Jesus said to them, "I am he," they stepped back and fell to the ground. Again he asked them, "Whom are you looking for?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. So if you are looking for me, let these men go." This was to fulfill the word that he had spoken. "I did not lose a single one of those whom you gave me."
Judas Iscariot. Now he's one of yours, isn't he? One of your friends? One of your followers? But whose followers are they, really? Do you know what he sold you for? Oh, I'm not going to tell you. That would be cruel. No, I'll tell you this, though. He thinks he's doing the right thing. Oh, no, wait. He's not quite sure what right is. He can't find rightness. And that little seed of doubt inside of him gnaws at him all day long until he's so turned around that he can't tell right from wrong anymore. He's lost in a fog, and all he knows is himself. And in the end, he figures that as long as he's the one making the decision, that it must be the right one, or close enough. So who's the leader and who's the follower? You know the funny part? I'll tell you the funny part. They're going to blame all this on him. They'll point out his wrongness so that they can distance themselves from him and absolve themselves of all of it. The rest of the disciples are going to say, "It's not me, it's Judas." Down throughout history, they're going to say, "It's not me, it was Judas." When people tell this story down through the ages, it's not going to be your story. It's going to be his. Who is Judas? Why did Judas do that? How could Judas go so wrong? You know what? They're sure if they can make this about him, that they'll be free of all his sin. How delicious! They don't even realize that as they do that, they become him. And that is how they betray you.
Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it, struck the high priest's slave, and cut off his right ear. The slave's name was Malchus. Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword back into its sheath. Am I not to drink the cup that the Father has given me?" So the soldiers, their officer, and the Jewish police arrested Jesus and bound him. First they took him to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it was better to have one person die for the people. Simon Peter and another disciple followed Jesus. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter was standing outside the gate, so the other disciple was known to the high priest, went out, spoke to the women who guarded the gate, and brought Peter in. The woman said to Peter, "You are not also one of these man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the slaves and the police made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing around it and warming themselves. Peter also was standing with them and warming himself.
Do you see? Do you see? It's Peter. You're Peter. Oh, did you think one of them would remain? Did you think one of them would stand with you? Where's your best friend now, Jesus? Where's your companion who vowed never to betray you no matter what? Guess what? He's warming himself by another fire. They say it's better for one man to die for the sake of the people. Do you know what they mean? It's better for one man to die, even if that man be God himself, than for it to be them.
Then the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. Jesus answered, "I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple, where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who heard what I said to them. They know what I said." When he had said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered, "If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They asked him, "You are not also one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Again Peter denied it, and at that moment the cock crowed.
Peter, Judas and Peter, priests and prophets and princes. Do you hear it? It's the chorus of denial. Everybody's in denial. Oh, did you hear that? The chicken knows what time it is. Do you? Oh, they don't. They don't know the secret that you and I know. That ever since that moment long ago, when they bit that fruit, all they have left is the power of denial. They can't do what's right. No, they can't fight follow you. Not that they want to. That'd be following. Where's the power in that? Where's the identity in that? They don't want to follow. They want to lead. Even if it leads them and you to destruction. Do you hear it? The chorus. Be like Peter. Don't be like Judas. Be like the holy men. Don't be like the sinners. Ha! What happens when I own them all?
Then they took Jesus from Caiaphas to Pilate's headquarters. It was early in the morning. They themselves did not enter the headquarters, so as to avoid ritual defilement and not be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered, "If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." The Jews replied, "We are not permitted to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill what Jesus had said when he indicated the kind of death he was to die. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have abandoned you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So are you a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I am born, and for this I came into this world, to testify the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is truth?"
What is truth? Are you the king of the Jews? Oh, you know, they might have made you one had you said and done the right things. But I know it wouldn't have been perfect, right? And that's not good enough for you. You still don't get it, do you? You blind fool! There is no perfect. There's only power. Look at Pilate standing there, asking all the right questions, not able to hear the answers. But so what? He doesn't need answers. He's got power. He makes his own answers. He's going to use you to prove that, you know. You, look at you sitting there. You could have been him. You could have been more than him. If you had just listened. If you had just admitted reality, the way things really are, you could have brought so much to so many people. But no, it's always been your weakness. You won't fight for what's yours. You could have had everything you want, wielding power, establishing your own kingdom, but you won't do it. Come on. Claim Peter. Show him the error of his ways. Set him against Judas and Judas against Peter, and let the winner depose Pilate. Set up a new temple. Set up a new government. Make a new heaven and a new earth. Even now, you could do it. It's not too late. It's right there. I can save you. Just admit it. And you could rule alongside me. No? Fine. You remember. You all remember. When the time comes, when you feel those names pierce your flesh. This happened because you lack the vision and the power to enforce your will. And that is why you don't matter.
After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, I find no case against him. But you have a custom that I release someone for you at the Passover. Do you want me to release for you the King of the Jews? They shouted in reply, Not this man, but Barabbas. Now Barabbas was a bandit. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged, and the soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head as they dressed him in purple robe. They kept coming up to him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews, and striking him on the face. Pilate went out again and said to them, Look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no case against him. So Jesus came out, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, Here is the man. When the chief priests and the police saw him, they shouted, Crucify him! Crucify him! Pilate said to them, Take him yourself and crucify him. I find no case against him. The Jews answered him, We have a law, and according to that law he ought to die, because he has claimed to be the Son of God.
Now this is some of my best work. Oh, it's delicate stuff, but not that difficult if you know how. See, you created the law. And in theory, it's fine. You tell them what to do, you tell them what not to do. Try to keep them from going astray. Thou shalt not kill. Do not bear false witness. It's all pretty clear. But here's what you don't realize. The first time they hear it, they're listening to you. But every time after that, they're just listening to themselves. Everything you give them, they try to control. They hear your commands. They understand it, and then they think they own it. Your law becomes theirs, and they become the law. And whatever they disagree with, whatever threatens them, they will say, breaks the law. Except it's not your law anymore, is it? The people you told not to kill have selected a bandit and a murderer over you, and are now screaming to crucify you. The ones who aren't supposed to bear false witness have beaten you and bloodied your brow. And they will walk home tonight swearing that they have served you in all of this. So much for your law. They break it even as they uphold it.
Now, when Pilate heard this, he was more afraid than ever. He entered his headquarters again and asked Jesus, Where are you from? But Jesus gave him no answer. Pilate therefore said to him, Do you refuse to speak to me? Do you not know that I have the power to release you and the power to crucify you? Jesus answered him, You would have no power over me unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. From then on, Pilate tried to release him, but the Jews cried out, If you release this man, you are no friend of the emperor. Everyone who claims to be a king sets himself against the emperor. When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus outside and sat on the judge's bench at a place called the Stone Pavement, or in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now it was the day of preparation for the Passover, and it was about noon. He said to the Jews, Here is your king. They cried out, Away with him! Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him! Pilate asked them, Shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, We have no king but the emperor. Then he handed him over to them to be crucified.
Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him! Where are your friends now, Jesus? The people that you trusted say they have no king but the emperor, and he rules the world and lifts himself up as a god. Oh, don't worry. It's not about him personally. If he didn't exist, they'd pick another one and another. You're not looking at a crowd of people. You're looking at a sea of would-be gods. This isn't a mistake. This isn't an accident. They're not misunderstanding you, Jesus. They heard your call, and their answer is clear. They'd rather have any other god but you. They'd rather run through an entire world full of gods rather than admit you're one. Because admitting you're the one means that they're not. Now you know what betrayal means and just how deep it runs. Not just part of them betray you, all of them do. And not just with part of themselves either, but with the very core of their being and everything they are. You failed before you even started, Jesus of Nazareth.
So they took Jesus, and carrying the cross by himself, he went out to what is called the place of the skull, which in Hebrew is called Golgotha. There they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on either side, with Jesus between them. Pilate also had an inscription written and put on the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Many of the Jews read this inscription because the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew, in Latin, and in Greek. Then the chief priests of the Jews said to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews, but this man said, 'I am the King of the Jews.'" Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." When the soldiers had crucified Jesus, they took his clothes and divided them into 4 parts, one for each soldier. They also took his tunic. Now the tunic was seamless, woven in one piece from the top. So they said to one another, "Let us not tear it, but cast lots for it to see who will get it." This was to fulfill what the scripture says, "They divided my clothes among themselves, and for my clothing they cast lots." And that is what the soldiers did. Meanwhile, standing near the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing beside her, he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that hour the disciple took her into his own home.
And now, at the end, you lose it all. Your possessions, your family and friends, your body, and soon your breath and your life. Everything that defines you, everything that makes you, you will sacrifice to me. You never learned this. Now you will. All of existence ends with loss. You should have seen that from the beginning. You're going to see that now. And so will everyone watching. It's not just that you have lost Jesus of Nazareth. You are lost. That's the story, and this is its end. Thinking you were running away from death, you've run headlong into it. You wanted to become human? Then die like them.
After this, when Jesus knew that all was now finished, he said, in order to fulfill the scripture, "I am thirsty." A jar full of sour wine was standing there, so they put a sponge full of the wine on a branch of hyssop and held it to his mouth.
Do you thirst? What is it that you once said? Blessed are those thirsting for justice and righteousness, peace and joy. Where are they? What have they given you? Wine that soured. Its promise turned to bitterness, its time past. Taste it, drink deeply and cry out. Watch everything you hope to be leak out the wounds in your hands and your feet. Watch your own lifeblood dropping to the ground, fruitless and empty. You're alone now, Jesus of Nazareth. Even now, it might not be too late. A last-second reprieve, a miracle. Just admit who they are, these people who have crucified you. They're not worth it. Confess the truth in what I've told you, now that you've seen it with your own eyes and felt it in your own body. Take up my power. Have your revenge, and even now you can live. No, I see you will not. You reject reality to the last, living for a vision that died long ago. Then nothing will save you. They certainly can't. And I won't. Your time is done, Jesus. And I am here. Here I will remain, and here I will rule over everyone you have loved, over their children, over their children's children, through all of time. Your power is ended. As you die, you finally know the truth. As long as the world exists, my reign over it will exist. Hope has failed you, and the power over life and death that I hold is everything. The final word is mine. My kingdom will endure.
Then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit.
Walking on the road to Jerusalem, the time had come to sacrifice again. My two small sons, they walked beside me on the road. The reason that they came was to watch the Lamb. Daddy, Daddy, what will we see there? There's so much that we don't understand. So I told them of Moses and Father Abraham. Then I said, dear children, watch the Lamb. For there will be so many in Jerusalem today. We must be sure the Lamb doesn't run away. Then told them of Moses and Father Abraham. Then I said, "Dear children, watch the Lamb." When we reached the city, I knew something must be wrong. There were no joyful worshipers, no joyful worship songs. I stood there with my children in the midst of angry men. And then I heard the crowd cry out, "Crucify him!" We tried to leave the city, but we could not get away. Forced to play in this drama, a part I did not wish to play. Why upon this day were men condemned to die? Why were we standing here when soon they would pass by? I looked and said, "Even now they come." The first one cried for mercy. The people gave him none. The second one was violent. He was arrogant and loud. I still can hear his angry voice screaming at the crowd. Then someone said, "There's Jesus." I scarce believe my eyes. A man so badly beaten, he barely looked alive. Blood poured from his body, from the thorns upon his brow, running down the cross and falling to the ground. I watched him as he struggled. I watched him as he fell. The cross came down upon his back. The crowd began to yell. In that moment, I felt such agony. In that moment, I felt such loss. Until a Roman soldier grabbed my arm and screamed, "You! Carry his cross!" At first I tried to resist him, then his hand reached for his sword, and so I knelt and took the cross from the Lord. I placed it on my shoulder and started down the street. The blood that he'd been shedding was running down my cheek. They led us to Golgotha. They drove nails deep in his feet and hands. And yet upon the cross I heard him pray, "Father, forgive them." Oh, never have I seen such love in any other eyes. Into thy hands I commit my spirit, he prayed, and then he died. What seemed like years, I'd lost all sense of time, until I felt two tiny hands holding tight to mine. My children stood there weeping. I heard the oldest say, "Father, please forgive us." The Lamb There's so much that we don't understand. So I took them in my arms, and we turned and faced the cross. Then I said, dear children, watch the Lamb.